Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled people story. It all started with a simple shared driveway. Picture two houses with a narrow strip of pavement that leads to our respective garages in the backyard. The concept was easy enough. When a car occupies the driveway, no one can enter or exit. Unfortunately, my neighbor had a different interpretation of sharing. He made it his mission to avoid any form of cooperation with me. While I only owned a single pickup truck, he possessed two cars and often left one parked in the driveway. I pleaded with him numerous times to keep his second car at the back near his garage, allowing me some space to maneuver. Though he complied on those occasions, he did so begrudgingly. The situation deteriorated when he started encouraging his guests to park in the driveway, resulting in a lineup of cars extending all the way to the garages. Frustration built within me, and I reiterated the need for him to respect the shared space and find alternative parking arrangements for his visitors. He assured me that he would address the issue during the upcoming weekend, raising my hopes that we had finally reached a breakthrough. On a lazy Saturday morning, I emerged from my house only to be met with a shocking sight: a fence erected in the middle of the driveway. My anger surged, and I stormed toward his front door, hardly containing my frustration. Upon his arrival at the door, I struggled to maintain a calm demeanor. Me: "What is with the fence?" Neighbor: "Well, since you seemed so concerned about the driveway situation and felt the need to meddle in my affairs, I decided to build a fence along the property line. It's important to note that the fence was not situated in the exact center. Instead, it encroached so far into my side that he could still squeeze his cars in and out, while my own vehicle had no hope of escape." Me: "But my car is in my garage. I have no way to get it in or out anymore." Neighbor: "Well, that's where the property line lies. You should have found street parking like everyone else." His mocking tone signaled the futility of reasoning with him. In reality, the property line divided the driveway right down the middle. Erecting a fence there would obstruct both of us. Giving up on any hope of an apology, I resolved to exact revenge and make his life a living hell. Unbeknownst to him, I had a demanding job located a considerable distance away. Now, not only did I have to bear the cost of commuting by train, but I intended to ensure he paid for every penny of it. I promptly contacted the city and requested a land surveyor to inspect the unauthorized fence that had trapped my car. While fences were permitted in our area, it was clear that his structure violated regulations. Not only could my neighbor not produce a permit for the fence's placement, but he even tried to deceive the surveyor by claiming that the driveway wasn't shared. He went so far as to fabricate ownership of both properties, asserting that I was merely a tenant. The surveyor saw through his lies and chose to measure the property line. Surprisingly, it turned out that my initial assumption was incorrect. Around 80% of the driveway fell within the boundaries of my property. Seeking clarification about installing a fence in the backyard, away from the driveway's vicinity, I learned that it would be a straightforward process. In the meantime, my neighbor was ordered to remove his fence immediately. Armed with the legal documents, I initiated the second phase of my plan, taking him to civil court to recover the train ride expenses. To my disappointment, he failed to appear, and the court ruled in my favor. With my money rightfully reclaimed and the driveway accessible once again, I decided it was time to teach my neighbor a lesson he would never forget. I obtained the necessary permits to build a fence and wasted no time in having it installed in my backyard, strategically positioned near his garage. As the fence started taking shape, my neighbor rushed out, his face turning a deep shade of red, and began hurling expletives at me. Neighbor: "What do you think you're doing? This is my garage." Me: "I'm building a fence on my side of the property. I have all the necessary permits and paperwork to prove it." Neighbor: "This is my half of the yard. I'll sue you for blocking me in." A wide grin spread across my face as I held up copies of the official documentation. Me: "Actually, I won't be directly blocking your driveway. The permit and the land adjuster's assessment clearly state that up to the point where your garage begins, it is my property. I have every right to build a fence and gate in my backyard." Stunned, my neighbor seemed at a loss for words. I hadn't mentioned it before, but he often used the entire backyard to host parties when he had guests. Now, with the fence dividing the space, he was left with a mere fraction of his previous entertaining area. To add insult to injury, I positioned a sign where the fence started, warning that illegally parked cars would be towed. No one dared to test me on this, and I enjoyed the luxury of easily maneuvering my truck in and out of the driveway every day. While my neighbor no longer spoke to me, I considered it a welcome consequence. I once spotted him attempting to argue with a different land adjuster, claiming that my fence was illegal. However, to his dismay, they informed him that there was nothing they could do. Revenge truly is sweet. The next one is a pro-revenge story. Here's some backstory. I have a 4-year-old Cocker Spaniel named Charlie, and he likes to poop. I let him out in my front garden every morning for his toilet routine, same in the evening. We don't have a boundary fence separating my garden from my neighbor's, besides a row of bushes. That being said, Charlie has never crossed or pooped beyond these bushes. Every week I collect the poop before it accumulates into a disturbing amount. I've been doing this for the past 4 years to keep my front garden looking good and odor-free. One day I came home from work to find that my neighbors weren't happy about finding dog poop in my front garden. I instantly went to collect what was there, but there wasn't much, and it was nowhere near the boundary where our gardens meet. Fast forward a week, and my neighbor complained again about the dog poop in my garden, but this time, they threatened to hurt my dog if he continued to poop there. This time, I wasn't so nice about it and stated that it's my garden and my dog can do as he pleases. Now I know dog poop can be annoying, but when it's not in your garden and there's no smell due to decent airflow and an open front garden, is it really justified to threaten a man's dog over some poop? Anyway, after months of dealing with these petty issues and daily shade being thrown at me for having a dog, I decided to declare war on my neighbors. I knew these people pretty well. They had just moved in, and we let them use our Wi-Fi for a couple of months until they got theirs sorted. I picked up a few things about them, and one of them was how OCD they were. They mowed their back garden every week, and painted the entire bottom layer of the house to match their fence. This was all the fuel I needed to exact my revenge. My first step was to start off small. I knew they liked things to match, so I painted my fence gate bright pink instead of matching it with my fence. This was my first small victory. They hated it so much they begged me to correct the color, so I did. I figured if peace was an option, it was worthwhile. Then the animosity began again. I had to come up with something so evil and yet genius that couldn't be traced back to me. This is when I planted over 5,000 dandelion seeds in their front and back gardens. I knew I was in this for the long game. I did this under the cover of night and made sure to plant them in places not easily mowed. Fast forward 3 months and their garden was covered in weeds. They grew through all the paving slabs and were scattered all over the garden. It took them over 3 days to clear the weeds and cost them around 100 pounds for weed killer. The next one is a petty revenge story. I work as a bartender in a small cocktail bar for some time now, and I'm usually chill, but bullies can still push my buttons in a wrong way. Before starting, I may be in the wrong for doing this, but it is what it is. A week ago, a bunch of guys came for a few. They seemed like okay dudes, early 20s, but the group dynamic was kinda off, introducing the main antagonist. Obnoxious guy, too loud, snapping his fingers at me when ordering, don't snap fingers at bartenders' kids, we're not dogs. Punching his friends in the shoulders all the time. A sportier, really aggressive version of a David Spade character he was. Next to David Spade sat the victim of most of his playful teasings. Silently enduring his crap, I really felt sorry for this fellow. He wasn't a drinker, but he looked like he would rather be drinking distilled devil's piss than continue sitting next to this macho maniac. He was really uncomfortable. David continued to bug him to take a shot at least. Come on, one with me, don't be a pussy, ya idiot. Until, after a whole night of persuasion, finally my dude waved the white flag. Okay, let's do one shot together, then leave me be. 2 of your most ducked up shots, Spade shouted, snapping his fingers, while I imagined snapping his neck. Oh, you'll get a ducked up shot, buddy. I made these 2 layered shots, but while looking almost the same, they were different. David got stuff like Red Joxano Absinthe, 75% alcohol, Stro, 80% alcohol, Tabasco, 110% flaming diarrhea. Really nasty business altogether, and the other guy got mostly syrups, juices, harmless stuff. They looked almost identical. Red absinthe can pass visually as cranberry juice, Stro as a syrup from brown sugar, Sambuca as anything colorless, etc. They took their shots and all hell broke loose. The other guy chugged his shot like a champion, not even flinching. Why would he? He drank juice. But David Spade... Boy, oh boy. He looked like he'd have a brain aneurysm. Tears pouring from his eyes, coughing like his lungs want to come out. He had a face and a posture of a man who just got waterboarded with some sort of chili sauce. The other guy looked surprised until he caught a wink from me. But David Spade and the rest of the crew, now roaring with laughter about his misery, suspected nothing. They got their shots on the house, the poor dude was left alone, and David was a good boy for the rest of the night, deflatedly enduring small mockings from his fellows. Now, I may have used my powers in a wrong way, but this is the first and only time I messed with customers' drinks, and I regret nothing. He was rude, aggressive even, to everyone around him. Duck you, sporty David Spade. The next one is an entitled people story. Just found out why there were a bunch of flashing lights and loud sirens on the street behind mine last night, and I am gobsmacked. The family that used to live in the house behind mine, whoever so helpfully called the police on me after I gave them a heads up about their Wi-Fi, has moved out. A new family has moved in. Our houses are separated by a couple 100 feet and a brush line. I found this out because they came to talk to me last week about my smoking a joint before I go to bed on my porch, and how the smell is terrible and it's bothering them, and I just need to not do that. Note: I smoke precisely 1/2 gram joint on my screened-in porch before bed, perhaps 4 times a week. The likelihood that any of the smoke from that is going anywhere near their house is slim to none. I told the new back neighbors I'll turn a ceiling fan on to thin out the smell, but I'm not going to get eaten alive by bugs just before bed because they don't want me to smoke on my own property. Porch is screened in. I guess this answer didn't satisfy them because last night, one of them came up with a cunning plan to get back at me. They dug a hole in their lawn, built a fire with a bunch of green pine wood so it'd be extra smoky, started the fire, and then put a box fan pointed at my porch next to the fire and went inside. 3 guesses what happened. If you guessed they set their own house on fire, you would be correct. One of their next-door neighbors called cops because some cinders from the fire set my back neighbor's house on fire. I have no idea how much the fire damaged the house, only that the people who lived there got arrested and given an impressive set of fines for negligence and a bunch of other things. Did I mention my county is under a fire weather warning, and all of those fines are multiplied? The juiciest part, and the reason I decided to post here about it, was that one of the cops was talking to the neighbors who were going on and on about the awful pot smell that I was causing and making the house uninhabitable. The cop sniffs a little bit and tells them that's not marijuana, that's a skunk. The next one is an entitled parent story. I'm going to correct the grammar and spelling mistakes in the story while preserving the context and details. Here's the revised version. I'm just going to continue being an attention seeker since my stories about my parents do so well on this sub. Just a reminder, I'm sharing these stories because they're entertaining, not because I'm looking for sympathy. I'm already in therapy before anyone comments on that. This one is fresh off the press, as it just happened yesterday. My parents' favorite thing to accuse me of is being a manipulative liar. Which is funny because I'm genuinely the world's worst liar. I'm too dumb to be good at it, and I instantly get nervous and start stuttering just because of the sheer stress. I've always been more comfortable being honest, even when it's gotten me in trouble. It gets me in trouble a lot with my parents because they really don't like to be told what they don't want to hear. Those of you who may have read the first post I made on this sub might remember my parents are, let's say, wary of modern medicine. They don't like mental health professionals of any kind. They are selectively anti-vaxxers. They're okay with some vaccines, but they're convinced that others will turn you inside out, depending on what articles reach them on Facebook. And they don't believe in certain kinds of treatments or procedures for various ideological reasons that are all very silly. Just to paint a picture, my mother has given me healing crystals more than once for various ailments I've gone through. They are lucky my brother and I never got gravely ill as children. I was having a perfectly normal conversation with my mother on the phone yesterday when I accidentally let slip that I had a consultation booked a week from now with a doctor. I hadn't mentioned it to my parents at all because it's one of those medical procedures they do not approve of. I still hadn't come up with a good lie as to why I was going back into surgery in a few months or so, or how I could maybe explain it away. My mother, already ready to go off upon hearing this, asked me what for. I rolled a 1 on persuasion. I just couldn't come up with anything that would satisfy them on the spot. My mother started going off on me for lying, and my father started yelling in the background too. They started making threats to get me off the family's insurance plan for wasting resources. which would suck because my meds cost $350 a month. I just started a new job and my benefits won't kick in for another 2 months. I got off the phone with them. At lunch, I decided I was just going to rip the bandage off then and there. I told them over text the truth, that I knew they react badly, and that if they were really going to take me off the insurance plan, to let me know as soon as possible so I can hop on Blue Cross. They called me a few hours later. My mom went off telling me that it's your choice, but you're hurting me by doing it and hurting me for lying about it. She's crying. I honestly wanted to just start laughing. My dad disagrees. He informs me that he feels that this is a family matter, that he wants me to come down to their house so it can be discussed in person. My body, my health, a family matter? For context, I don't have a car. Their house is in another city, in an area where if no one drives me, I'm trapped there. I tell him no, that I only told them so there's no confusion why I'm going back in for surgery. And this is the last time it's going to be brought up. That I refuse to talk about it further, and I'm not stranding myself with them only to get cornered about it. That's the point at which my father drops the zinger. With all this lying and manipulating and you trying to tear the family apart like this, I feel like I'm being abused. Stunning. I got off the phone with them and have their contacts blocked for right now so I can focus on my job, which is the best job I've ever had, best paying, good benefits, and good work. I'm putting this in here as a reprieve. They'll get over it. I'll start my application to Blue Cross just in case. It will be cheaper than paying in full for my meds. The next one is an entitled people story. I'll start this off by saying my ex is vindictive as hell. We've been fully divorced since right before the pandemic started. We sold the house we shared and I didn't have to pay her alimony because she cheated, and we're in an at-fault state. It was messy since D-Day. All of the stereotypes. First the sobbing and then trickle truths saying, I love you. It was just one time. Okay, it was 2 years. And then the gaslighting followed by I'm gonna take you for everything, before packing her stuff and walking out. I feel like I never really knew the woman my ex was in all the time we were together. We were married for 5 years and together for 7. And in 2 of those 5 married years, she had affairs with 3 other men. The final one being a foreign businessman of some sort from what I could find out. Yes, I got tested for STDs, and was thankfully negative. Yes, she got pregnant by the final affair partner, and no, I didn't sign the birth certificate because I found out about all the affairs before the baby was born thanks to a call from the first affair partner. My ex tried to go full scorched earth on me, but since we live in and were married in an at-fault state, she lost. We didn't pay equally into our house, and the equity was divided 70-30. So I got a pretty good cash payout when I sold our marital home to put as a down payment on a different house closer to my job. It's a bit of a downgrade, but it suits a single guy in his 30s like me just fine. My ex did show up at my house once, but I refused to let her in. She idioted at me that I'd financially ruined her in the divorce. I said that if she was fully willing to do that to me first, and the audacity of that idiot to say it should have been my life ducked over, not hers. I laughed so hard and said it was karma. She yelled that she'd sue me for what was rightfully hers. I said if she was going to sue me, then go ahead and sue me. It'd end up the same way in court because she has nothing but a false sob story. She was the cheater, not me. I'm no angel, but I didn't do anything to her, and she was the one who ruined our marriage. She then said she'd tell everyone she could that I abused her. I said I'd sue her for defamation if she did, and I was recording our interaction and had those words saved to my phone. She went wide-eyed, and her jaw dropped, the look people are calling the surprised Pikachu face. Then I asked why she was there, if not to just try and make trouble, because she had a new man in her life that knocked her up. She just huffed at me and said he isn't around much, and she's stuck in a tiny apartment living off his child support till he comes back. It was immature of me, I know, but I did the bit of playing the world's smallest violin. She yelled at me to go duck myself, and I yelled back that I'd sooner do that than her any time. She raged at me and then got in her car to leave. Haven't seen her since. There is an homeowners association in my neighborhood, but I was not legally obligated to join it because the last owner of my house was not a member. I made sure of that through a real estate lawyer as well. The homeowners associations had no grounds to force me to join, and were not happy about it. The homeowners association's president would show up with forms every week for the first month demanding I sign them. Then she threatened to take me to court, to which I had to get a C&D sent to her from my lawyer, to make her stop that. So she started harassing me by looking for any infractions she possibly could to report to the city. An inspector came out several times and found nothing wrong. In fact, I offered one of them a burger while grilling, and they graciously accepted. Did I mention the homeowners associations hates barbecues and parties that aren't approved in advance? Well, they do. And I like to grill when the weather is good. And my neighbors actually love me for it because I invite them over. I had the police called on me several times for noise complaints because I was playing music on a Saturday afternoon while having my friends over. The homeowners association's president I caught trespassing once when she was trying to peer into my windows. I called the police, but she denied ever doing it, so I got cameras. She hasn't trespassed since. But I still got repeated passive-aggressive letters saying my cameras were not an approved addition to my house. Some months ago, I started getting letters for fines in the mail, and when I contacted the homeowners associations, their representative claimed they had it on record that I'd joined and needed to pay all fees effective immediately. I told them that was not possible. Then they emailed a scanned copy of the forms, and they had a signature on them, but it was not mine. It was very similar in some ways, and I recognized right away that it was my ex's handwriting. She knew what my signature looked like, but it was a loose imitation at best. I got in touch with a lawyer right away over the forged signature. But the homeowners association still demanded to go to court, and it took 7 months before that happened. Meanwhile, they were stacking unpaid fines against me weekly and threatening to put a lien on my house. We went to court, and the homeowners association's president looked very smug. But my lawyer pointed out how the signature wasn't the same as mine and was very inconsistent in the various forms. I'd never allowed the homeowners association's president into my house, and I'd never requested the forms. The idiot homeowners association's president actually slammed her palm on the table and said it was still binding, but when pressed where the fraudulent signature came from, she admitted my ex-wife called the homeowners associations, and they sent her the forms, then got them back in the mail signed. But then she actually claimed she thought I'd signed them. The judge looked at her and asked if she was serious. She confirmed she was. The judge then asked how a woman I was no longer married to, that had never even lived with me in my current residence, was supposed to have any bearing on whether or not I joined her homeowners associations. She went quiet, and I could see the "oh crap" look on her face as the hamster wheels were turning and she seemed to finally mentally put the pieces together. My lawyer then counterclaimed that what the homeowners associations did was blatant fraud and legal actions must be taken. And they were. I countersued the homeowners associations for the emotional distress of the harassment I'd received since moving in, which I had lots of proof of. That won me about 10 grand after lawyer fees that I decided to put towards my mortgage. The homeowners association's president was removed from her position. I like to think she was kicking and screaming. She was also slapped with a hefty fine. I've seen her outside a few times, and she always looks at me like I am the devil. The homeowners associations itself had to pay all of my legal fees, too. I wanted to go after my ex for forging my signature, but I can't because not long after she forged my signature on those forms, she apparently left the country to be with her third affair partner. She's somewhere in Europe from what I can see of the final posts on her Facebook before she disappeared. So I can't do anything against her unless she ever returns to the US. So that was a wash. I'm not getting letters from the homeowners associations anymore, though. And the new president has promised to keep things completely cordial from now on. I still don't feel like I got much of a win in this, though. Other than the $10K payout, it all felt like a huge waste of time. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.